that it came from. You remember the cars that were made in the 60s, like the Morris Farinas and the Austin Farinas?
Oh no,
no,
no.
So what was the band? What was the band like? How did you form it?
Well, I didn't actually form the Farinas.
Right.
I joined it, as it were. I was kind of just associated. I had my own bands. Well, I say my own bands. I was part of bands.
Yeah.
And they were a quartet, and really quite an individual bunch even then. The four of them: bass player, up front singer, guitar player, and drummer. But they were kind of then interpreting sort of like jazz blues things, which was kind of really off the wall, for those days. I'm talking early 60s. And Jimmy King, who was the singer then, apparently decided one day he was going to play the saxophone, so I went and bought a saxophone, and so, 4 days later he was on stage with it, a great harp player.
Yeah.
And they were very individual, very different, and it was all, they were playing blues songs or R&B songs that people would play then, but with almost like a jazzy summer's day vibe on the top of it.
Wow.
But they were always individual, I mean, had nothing to do with me. I was just pleased that they asked me to join them,
So what was the very first band you had? How did the music thing start anyway?
For me?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's only in the sense of I used to be dance mad 6-7 days a week. I'd be dancing at the local Pally, various dance halls there.
Yeah.
And we're talking, late 50s really. And then in the Pally, where they used to have these sort of crumbly old 14-piece orchestras that were trying to emulate the 50s jazz orchestras and all that. But there again, they would play the local twist song. Or Anyway, they started having competitions, talent contests and that, and there was me and a couple of my pals, and like everybody, we used to buy all the singles and learn the words and this, that and the other. So I said, let's go up. And we really used to love people like the Coasters and Drifters and things like that, so we'd sing their songs. And we went up and we kind of started to win. Then we started going, probably trying things individually. I'd gone, I can't remember what songs, even if it was miming. But anyway, one day, after one of these competitions, I come off the stage and a guy come up to me and he says, do you want to join a group? I went, oh, all right. I didn't really know anything about it at all. I was never a musician at all. We were really just singing, just trying to win ourselves a free Coke each, It had nothing to, and all of a sudden somebody asked me to join, and it was no bass, just 2 guitars through the same amp, and a geese with a bass drum and a snare, basically. And I joined them and doing things, and then, I don't know, people just asked me to do things all the time.
When did you start writing stuff, putting stuff together on that front?
Just before we became family, I suppose. Yeah. We were still the Farinas. John Whitney and myself started just writing a couple of things. Saying that, I went out, I was doing a bit of a solo thing when I was about 21, 22, with a real old Tin Pan Alley merchant manager called Phil Calvert, somebody Calvert. Anyway, thankfully he got shot. What's his name, Calvert? He owned sort of one of these pirate radio stations. Somebody Calvert, anyway. Yeah. Nasty old git it was. Anyway, and I did like a couple of years in his stable, as it were, with Johnny Eager or whatever it was, blah, 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 blah. That wasn't my name, mine was much worse than that, and I'm not telling you.
Oh, go on.
I really can't remember it.
Yes, you can. What was it? Everybody had great names back then.
Jimmy Stevens, something like that.
Right.
But anyway, that was a kind of a solo venture, and I lived out this house where he kept all these other animals in cages for a while. Then I kind of gave up because nothing happened, and I went back home to Leicester. Did you record
under the name Jimmy Stevens at all?
No, never got that far at all. Never got that famous. That died in death as well, thankfully. But I went back to Leicester, and again, I was working on the building with some pals, and all of a sudden, a couple of the musicians I knew, you know, come walking on the building site. Says, "Hey, Rog, do you want to join the band?" Which was the Farinas, and they were the best band in the, you know, the Leicestershire area, you know, I mean, by far, really. And I went, "Oh, thank you, yes." So I joined them and stayed on the building for a while, and because I think we all had jobs, you know, it would only be like, you know, semi-pro. Well, then we got to be pretty popular and doing lots of gigs, you know, and stuff, and so we were able to give up the day job, as it were.
Did you have a record contract with the Farinas?
The Farinas, no, they made a record of their own before I joined them.
Right.
Made a single, I think. But my recording was really when it became family. Kim, I'm not going to remember anything now. Yeah, we became family and first we made a single.
Yeah.
It might have been something like Liberty. And then about a few months later, we did a whole deal with Warner's, and that's when we started making the albums and full-on stuff, you know.
So where did the name Family come from? Why the
Well, that's this guy, Phil, Kim, I was going to say Kim Philby. I wish.
Yeah.
Kim, real Californian surfing freak, did a hell of a lot production and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, we went through this again, as you did. This craze, all of a sudden it was, what a really good idea, why don't we wear demob suits on stage? You know, be different and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did that for probably 2.5 weeks. But he happened to see us and he went, "Hey, you should be called the Family." And we went, "What do you mean, the Family?" He says, "Well, because of the mafioso, the blah, 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 you know, the Italian dodgy gangster suits, as we call them." And we all went a bit like, nasty. And then I suppose it come from the management that we had at the time, said, "Well, actually, it's quite a good name." And all of a sudden, because there was a whole cultural change going on, you know, music become quite artistic and what we call hippiedom, you know, hippie years. Family became to be quite an expressive word within this cultural change. But the intention when it was first suggested had nothing to do with that, you know, it was more the gangsters. But then people picked it up as a budding social awareness thing to call yourself to be in a family. And
it was a great name. I remember all the bands around at the time we used to look at, because there were some weird names around, Heavy Jelly, you remember all those sort of pretty ridiculous. And I know that everybody always thought Family was a great name.
I wasn't struck at all. I mean, I think we had a vote and I got voted out. And, all right.
So you're now Family.
Yeah.
Suddenly overnight.
Yeah, it was
so
almost. Yeah.
Music change?
Music change. Well, that's because the manager that we had then put us in the studio in Denmark Street, you know, the old Tin Pan Alley thing. We put 4 or 5 tracks down for this. I must remember this guy's name, Kim. He was such a big influence on us, actually. And it's a shame I can't remember his second name now. And he brought us some songs, kind of folky type stuff, because apparently in LA, you know, the folk was kind of merging with rock, and it was a whole, again, different thing being invented. And he was sort of part of that. And he asked us to do these things like Silver Dagger. And we maybe Charlie and I probably wrote a couple of tunes then for that thing, you know. I mean, it would have been very, very early days, you know. We'd written them and said, "Oh, can we try these?" I mean, I wish I could hear the demo. I was never heard of them since, you know.
Really?
Which is a shame. But that was, I suppose, our first recording venture together then. And what year? Well, I'm going to say late 66 maybe. Something like that.
Had you been doing live shows as well?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, well, I mean, we were working 6-7 nights a week.
All over the country?
Very popular. Yeah, we were a good band. I mean,
you were very much...
Very different.
I can remember. I came to see it, and I can remember very much it was you're part of the underground scene. It was very much the, I mean, the underground as we knew it then was just fantastic. You know, you because you discovered bands. So you suddenly come from being in the Farinas to be an underground band.
Yeah. But again, but before the underground, I mean, we were, you know, we moved from what would be, you know, I mean, almost stemming from classic rock stuff, going through to the blues R&B feel, and then them taking on a kind of almost a jazzy approach. You know, Train in the River.
Yeah.
Jimmy Jufrey.
Yeah.
Well, that was almost like the element of the band.
Oh, okay.
You know, that kind of guitar work.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
And but playing what would normally be like standard rock and roll, but with this hint of that Jimmy Jufrey stuff on the top of it. That's what made them so different.
So you're touring six days a week. When did what you consider was there a point when you thought, hold on a minute, because you were building up a huge fan base that were following you around and coming everywhere you went. There must have been a moment you thought, you know, hold on a minute, this is more than just, you know, sort of having fun and.
You just kind of went with it, didn't you? I mean, obviously, and hoping for a recording chance, you know, this, that, and the other.
And when did that come?
Well, I say we did the demo thing then, and then that was it. We had the management that put us in that situation. Then he's the guy that, you know, sort of, he was an agent as well. A guy called Reed, somebody Reed from up in Leeds. Sorry, the rhyming. But he was putting us out about 6 days a week, and then, like you say, the underground thing, and then we would come down to London, which was obviously a very big deal for northern groups in a sense, you know, coming down. But we were kind of impressing people down here, and people were taking us into the culture, because this was the centre for that underground culture as well. And then, this is all a bit lopsided, this, but
that's all right.
Before I joined them, the Farinas, as it were, they had a London manager,
right,
who, whatever, dealt with them for a while, and then obviously they split for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, while we were starting to play our new inventions, as it were, you know, songs and this and the other, we were coming down to London. He came to see us, and he was very taken by the band, and he got interested in remanaging us.
Oh, okay.
And he was a very, very well connected man, you know, and his father was Lewis Gilbert, the director, you know. So therefore, you know, I mean, there are lots of connections, but for whatever reason, he could see he had his finger on the ball, finger on the trigger, something like that, of what was going on in London. You know, I mean, where everybody was recording, like we mentioned earlier, you know, the
Olympic Studios
in Barnes, and the Stones and the Beatles, and you know the Floyd and the Hendrix coming over, and blah blah blah, is all this, and it was all merging together.
Yeah.
So it was big, you know, big stuff for us, and we went, oh, okay, yeah, sounds like a good deal. So he did a deal with the manager we had. Got us all writing together, put us in various apartments, various houses, this, that, and the other.
All done in London, yeah? Or were you back in Leicester?
Not necessarily, no, we were writing in Leicester as well.
Right.
But then, yeah, he brought us down and he said, I think you should all move to London. So I said, all right, well, so he got us a house down in Chelsea, a big 3-story house. Bumped us all in there, you know, and we were seriously part of the happening business, you know.
Brilliant.
Lots Road, actually, just off Lots Road.
Yeah.
The Evil House, Lots Road. And we kind of worked and scallywagged away from there, you know. And that would be on almost the birth of our first album, which was Music in a Doll's House. Mm. We were doing that, actually commuting from Leicester to do it, and commuting also in moving to this house in Lots Road.
Did you work in pairs, or did you work as a band for the writing?
Some of it we were together. When we were in Leicester, there was probably, we would sit round in Jimmy King's flat, for instance, when we were writing, and Jim had have a soprano, and Rick would be there. Rick was the bass player, Rick Wakeman.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get the bass. He'd just bring out his violin, because he had a violin fiddle player's background, whatever. And there'd be Charlie, which is John Whitney, and he'd have an acoustic guitar, invariably a 12-string. So they'd have these 3 instruments, and we'd be writing and arranging, the 4 of us, because we'd elbowed the drummer by then, and we were waiting for a new drummer.
When you were out touring them before you had, or doing gigs, before you had the record deal, can you remember how much you were getting?
I don't know.
It wasn't much, but we were all
30 to 40, 50, 60 quid a night, you know, whatever.
Did you have a road crew then, or were you carting everything yourselves?
Carted it, yeah, but we had a guy with us.
We all had one roadie, didn't we?
Yeah, and he'd be a pal that come along from art school with somebody else, you know, and they'd help out, be a fan, yeah, absolutely. And
most of them are still around.
Pardon?
Most of them are still around.
Oh, I don't know. I don't see many of them.
So you're now suddenly doing your first album with all the stuff you've written.
Yeah. At Olympic, that was.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, suddenly because I remember what it was like. Suddenly going into, I mean, Olympic was one of the big 3 studios in London. It was just massive, and really only the best one in there, because it was not cheap.
Well, I mean, that was it. You know, again, the connection. The guy John Gilbert, who managed us then, just, you know, he picked us up, brought us down to London, introduced us to things.
Yeah.
To write, go and sit in the corner there for 3 days, go and write a few songs, you know, whatever. Took us straight, no thought. Just, I know where these boys are going. They're going exactly where I put them. You're going in Olympic. You're going to live in Chelsea. You're going to do this. You're going to hang out with the Beatles. You're going to record with the Stones. You're going to do this, that, and the other.
Was all the band happy at that time?
Yeah. I mean, it was creative, I suppose, isn't it? Lots of individuals in the bands. I think that shows through the music as well. Yeah. Just shooting off in so many different tangents, you know.
Did Rick leave before you did your first American tour, or was he still there for that?
Well, we were in the lobby of the Gorham Hotel, New York. The management sent us over about 5 days before. We had 3 or 2 days at the Fillmore East, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sent us over about 4 or 5 days.
This was with the first album, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To kind of acclimatise ourselves with jet lag, this, that, and the other. And of course, who do we get coming to meet us off the airplane? It's the Experience. Thank you very much. And if you know their reputation,
yes,
then we definitely got acclimatised pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So we were clubbing and, you know, learning how to lose our jet lag. And I think it was the Gorham Hotel. We'd been there, and I think we were all going to have a sound check at the Fillmore for the gig. And there's John Gilbert and Rick in the foyer of the hotel. Lanza's with us. I'm leaving. I'm going to join Blind Faith. I went, oh, this is before we've done the first gig. No. And whatever kind of response there was, obviously must have stunned us completely.
Yeah.
Before we've done the first gig, like.
Did he stay for those gigs, or did he?
Yeah. He
did the gigs. The atmosphere must have been pretty grim.
We died. I mean, you don't see many deaths like we died in America, in New York. We died completely and utterly.
Has that been for Bill
We're
Graham?
on with Alvin's bunch, 10 years after, and Keith Emerson.
Yeah.
The Nice.
Yeah.
And we were just, I think we were booed off the stage, actually. A bit like that. I almost cleaved Bill Graham's head off. So we got thrown
Bill
out.
Graham was, of course, the impresario of
the big one, wasn't
Fillmore East and Fillmore West. Yeah. He was the big man. Now, you're talking about people getting shot. I mean, Zeppelin's manager, Peter Graham. I mean, he allegedly, he said, held a gun to Bill Graham's face while Bill Graham's holding a gun to Peter Grant's face. So
that might have been over us. Yeah. Well, Peter was co-manager for us as well.
Was he?
Yeah, with John Gilbert.
But I mean, Bill Graham was hard man, shall we say?
Yeah.
So you had a little fracas with him, did you?
Well, we were on stage, and basically various people were kind of almost trying to lean on their amps and couldn't manage and sort of stumbling on the floor stuff on stage, Not good for the music.
No.
And it was as bad as that, really.
Yeah.
Seeing what's going on and just the vibe, this terrible vibe from the audience. And I think Bill Graham's come on the stage to see what is actually going on. And I picked up this mic and I got a whack. Which he didn't like at all.
No.
So, so he went immediately down and says, "Get him out of there." Took all the pictures down, all this, that, and the other, and I think it took all the heavies to actually go back. That's why I say Peter might have been part of it, because I know there was Mitchell and whatever, various musicians there, all going, "Oh, Bill, come on, give him a chance. It's not their fault." And he because I think he did 2 performances a night, something like that, 2 or 3 performances a night. So he let us on for the next performance, as long as I didn't move. And of course, with this thing of Rick, Rick already saying he was going to leave. This was supposed to be our grand opening as well. People thought we were going to be the business, the serious business in the States, and everybody was kind of waiting, bated breath. And of course, we went first gig straight down the toilet. We had the whole van full of gear nicked about 3 days later. Rick left after he did the New York shows. He left to go and start with the Blind Faith, and so Peter found us a bass player, John Weeder, who was living in California anyway, and he came over to New York and we rehearsed in New York for the next few gigs, And
how did they go?
All right. I mean,
we
really didn't do it at all. People were more interested in me actually nearly cleaving Graham's head off. I think we got more press out of that, really, to be honest.
Did you look back on, was it really 6 weeks of hell, or did you start?
Yeah, it was hell, really. Yeah. I mean, everything you could actually think should go wrong went wrong. We're just about to go into Canada, and somebody's nicked my passport from a hotel in New York, so that stopped me going to Canada. So they went on and did some gigs, 3 or 4 gigs in Canada without me, because I had to wait on the border. I had tattoos all over my fingers then and hands and things, and the old Canadian police didn't want me in either, because it looked like I'd done a lot of birds, Anyway, I mean, it was just desperation. So we had a whole truck full of all the gear got nicked in New York. Rick going, all kinds of.
It was collapsing, really, wasn't it? To some extent.
To be honest, they should have just brought us home. How the management, that was really, I mean, obviously you assume there'd been promotion and money spent on our debut tour, this, that and the other. But how the management knew and how he could have actually let us go, and then for Rick to tell us before the first gig that he's going to leave, he just, for all his acumen and knowing, you thought, well, didn't you just have a little bit of nous and think, well, let's just put the tour back for 3 or 4 months, you know what I mean? But they sent us in on this, they all knowing what was going to hit us. And then, of course, it hit us, and we couldn't handle it, basically, and things just went completely wrong. So,
did you go out to Japan at all, or Australia?
No, not at all. No, we sold records out there, which is strange, but
yeah,
I think our problem all along, well, as many musicians, problems is we couldn't just tie down a management that would do the right things at the right time, it seemed. The only right thing we ever did was the management was when he moved us into London, exactly into the central position of the happening, blah, 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 and putting us in Olympic. And but then extending it beyond that always got difficult. And maybe that was the personalities of the guys in the band, you know.
Yeah. When did it sort of...
We could all be a bit difficult, you know, at times.
Absolutely. So when did it all start to, should we say, come to an end as family?
When Tony Ashton joined. Tony.
Bless his soul.
That was a joke. Yeah. Absolutely. Bless your soul, mate.
One of life's great characters, Mr. Ashton.
No, I just meant the year, you know, it was the kind of the year of the draining out, you know.
Yeah.
We got to a point we made the Bandstand album. We had a couple of great singles off that, Burlesque and My Friend the Sun, and it was quite a biggie for us. And then from then on, I think John Wetton, who was the bass player at the beginning of that album, I think, got replaced. We pulled in Jimmy Cregan, who was actually a guitar player, really. But then Polly, who had been playing vibes and playing flute with us, he left the band. We decided we wanted a piano player, full on. So we asked Tony come in. I mean, we had great fun, and it was a great band, great musicians, but at the same time, it kind of it lost its inventiveness a bit. So it lost its edge for me.
Thank goodness Tony Ashton didn't drink. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. It didn't have any influence on us at all.
So can you remember the actual? Was it you who made the decision that that's it?
Yes, it was actually. Yeah.
So you told everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really want to do it anymore. Because all it seemed to me as well is that we were just going around doing the rounds, you know.
Yeah.
America really had dried up for us, you know. We couldn't get in there. My name wasn't so good. I mean, other than being some kind of rock and roll, dangerous, blah blah blah, you know, black sheep. The band was never going to take off there. Never going to take off really. And we kind of come to a head within Europe and the UK, and I just felt we were doing the rounds and almost losing self-esteem, I think, you know. It just all got a bit boring for me.
So you told everybody that you'd had enough,
yeah,
that was it?
Yeah, you know. And we went out lovely, you know, we were all really good pals then.
But then you wake up the next morning, you're still a musician, you're still part of the whole scene and the music. So had you got any plans of what you wanted to do?
Not at all. Like I said earlier, I never made plans at all. Whatever I did, I always got asked. I mean, the thing is, when Family folded, I didn't realise that it did. Sort of a week later, I went, what am I doing? Where am I? I was completely and utterly lost.
Really?
Completely lost, mentally lost, yeah.
Living in London or back in Leicester?
No, in London then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, thankfully, you know, we earned a few quid writing and stuff, you know, so you could afford to sit on your arse for a bit if you like. But I was totally lost, didn't know what to do with myself. And then I got various people again saying, do you want to come and have a jam or a blow? And I went, yeah, you know, whatever. And I was just blowing at various gigs with people.
Such as?
Saying that's a total lie. That happened after Streetwalker.
Okay.
No, when Family folded, sorry, missed the bridge. Yes, when Family folded, then the record company asked me and Charlie if we wanted to do any recording. And we'd done some writing that we hadn't put down and said, well, we've got these songs here, you know, let's make another album then. Okay, so Charlie and I went and made an album called Streetwalker, the Streetwalker album. And we didn't have a band, no ideas of having a band at all or going on the road. Then you get the kind of the invitation to, do you want to get a band and to present the album as a showcase, this, that and the other. So we did that and actually liked it. You know, it was quite a big band, 6-7 piece band or so. So we said, okay, we'll do a few gigs with this. And then it got to the point where we thought, well, we'll keep it on. You know, people wanted to manage us, and again, showing green lights here and there. Mm-hmm. And that was Streetwalker, which lasted about 3 years or so. You know, it was when Streetwalker folded, that's when I went, doing. Then I didn't know. Because the thing is that Charlie and I split. Charlie and I always been like a duo.
Yeah.
The end of Streetwalker, then Charlie and I split through one reason or another.
Yeah.
And the guys in the band, and there was just a whole disappearance like this. And I kind of just sort of, tried to look around and just didn't know where I was at all. And I was like that for about 18 months. Completely and utterly lost in like a wilderness, if you like, mentally, anyway.
Did the record company ask you to reform family or anything?
No, not then, no. I mean,
Well, Streetwalker, by the way, which was, you know, new music, new things that you'd done with John, with Charlie. Did you find when you went out and played that people expect you to play family stuff as well?
Well, only in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And we had Bobby Tench with us, who's a fantastic, dynamic singer, guitar player. And it just made us a whole different. Yeah. It was a whole different ball game. It's sort of ideologically, it was completely different. You
didn't want to keep Streetwalkers going after John had left, after you and Charlie had split up. You just wanted
No, not at all. No. The thing is that personalities started to grate a bit, and it was all going sideways, and again through what started was really good people taking up management. Then we kind of got siphoned off to this other management, which was completely and utterly a waste of time. And you just lose faith in it all. It's kind of
So you've now got 18 months. You don't know what to do.
Not a thing. No. I had various record companies ask me what I wanted to do. Did I want to record for them, do various things?
As a solo artist, yeah.
Yeah. They said, "Oh, bring us some material." I didn't really have any material. I said, "Well, I want to do things like I'll be taking them like the Sue label of records and say, look, I want to make records like this," which didn't go down too well. But and then so I started going in some of this a guy called Tim Hinkley, keyboard player. Yeah. He had a band together, and we'd get various people coming in singing. Some great musicians in the band. And I said, "Yeah, come do 2 or 3 songs." So that was maybe 1 or 2 gigs a week here and there. And I suppose it eased the burden of being on your own, as it was. So I thought, and then somebody, that was it.
Is this sort of late 70s?
Who was the guy? Steve from Love Affair.
Oh yeah,
the singer.
Yeah.
I got a call from him, or the guy that was producing him, Dave Courtney, saying, "Can you come down and Steve? I think recording this Olympic is out of us." And I've always lived in Barnes or that area for 35 years, basically, something like that. So Olympic was very close for me, very near, and they said, "Will you come down, because Steve wants to do and sing a couple of songs through for Steve." He obviously wanted some kind of direction, and thinking I could give it to him, whatever, I mean. Yeah, fine, so I did a couple of things, and it seems the guy who's producing, Dave, who'd had a lot of success with, the guy used to paint up like a clown, actually really quite a good voice.
Right.
Curly hair.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Little chap used to do the...
Leo Sayer.
Anyway, he had, quite a bit of success with him, this, that, and the other, and then he was doing the Steve album. Anyway, I got the call, "Why don't we do an album?" He says, "I've got interest from somebody who wants to make an album with you." And that became the first solo project, which was the Chapel album.
Yeah. How did that feel? Suddenly you're not part of a band anymore. You're
wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Did you wonder why you'd
not
done it before? The thing is,
again, with Streetwalker, although, like I say, I felt really out. I didn't really know what to do in this. The whole point was not to be in a band again, not to have to rely on other people. I mean, if you had to rehearse or because I didn't drive. I don't think any of us drove, to be honest. You had to go around to 4 or 5 houses, picking people up before you got anywhere. I really do not want this anymore. Give me an address and I'll get there myself. I want to be on my own, you know. I didn't want to have to. I suppose I'd lost the will to rely on people as well. The confidence to rely on people, and I decided just to rely on myself.
This is what, been late 70s?
Yeah.
Late
But
70s.
my first album was 78.
Yeah.
I think we're talking a 30-year. Okay.
Did you go out?
30-year anniversary.
Did you go out and tour it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, great band.
So you had to put a band together.
Yeah. Oh,
but this time you're in control.
Exactly.
Of the band.
Yeah.
So they can go around and pick each other up.
Yeah. I just got a driver come round, pick me up, and I was whisked away. But no, I had a great band, really good band, and I've always had a great band from then on. And with my first album, we had a really good response from Germany.
Yeah.
Over here, I got a good response in the UK as well, you know.
Yes.
But Germany in particular, I went over with this band, and it was like a 7-piece, quite a big band. And we tore the place apart, you know, really seriously had it off. And it kind of just built up, you know, reputation within Europe, you know.
But it was an interesting thing what you did, and also what happened to you, because we're just coming into the era now in the 80s, or late 70s, 80s, which was the big punk era.
Yeah.
Which came in, which really trod on everything. And England is or Britain is a strange place, that when something new comes, they put it on the shelf, but they take everything else off the shelves. Most of Europe, and in fact most other countries, don't do that. Something new comes in, it'll go on the shelf, but everything else that's been there is still there for people to see.
It still gets the respect. Yeah.
Now, you were suddenly having, well, you'd always, I mean, family were big out in Europe as well, but you've always, but suddenly you've got the solo thing that's big out there. So you can actually almost say, well, up yours, Britain, your fault, I'll go and work in Europe, which is pretty much
exactly what I did.
Exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that must have been, did that, I suppose to say upset you, because obviously it wouldn't, because you're doing extremely well out there. Yeah. But did it upset you as to what was happening in Britain, the fact that we cleared the shelves and?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always never read your own reviews, is it? And of course, you know, people like myself, you couldn't get a look in, you know, everything you did, and you know, you've got a band really that's really seriously steaming, but just because they're not wearing a certain kind of dress or playing a certain thing, you know,
and can
all of a sudden it becomes crap.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just so kind of naff.
Yeah.
The whole attitude is just so naff, and it is typical British actually. And I just thought, oh, you know.
So you're out in Europe, in Germany.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend out there?
Well, the last 30 years. I mean, earning a living, you know, making a living and touring.
Yeah.
You know, I don't live there, but I've been to kind of almost every nook and cranny there is, you know, within the, you know, well, you know, Austria, Germany, any almost Germanic-speaking people, Switzerland, you know.
Yeah.
Scandinavia, I used to, but I haven't been there probably for about 10 years, whatever. These other countries I still go to quite a lot, you know. Well, I mean, I do like about 25 gigs a year.
Yeah.
Which is nothing, you know. So it's an awful lot of time writing.
Yeah. So did you find suddenly you're being looked after by the German side of the record labels or that kind of thing much more than in the UK?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. I didn't really record for UK labels, you know. I mean, I recorded for German labels, or it would be like, you know, Polydor, you know, or
in Germany,
EMI, multinational labels, whatever. But it's only almost this last 4 or 5 years I've actually been recording for a British label again. Since 30 years ago, really.
So you carried on writing all the time through the 80s and never
yeah,
stopped?
Well, you do, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
You know, if you've got it there, you're going to have their ideas that have to come out, you know. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Do you write for other people, or
No,
just for yourself?
Never. I just write because I can't do anything else. You know what I mean? It just comes. Ideas come, and even now, you know, I'm 66, you know, and I still can't stop writing. It's like, well,
It must have been muted to you, the family reunion.
Oh, time and time again. Yeah, I'm not having it at all.
Nothing will convince you.
No. No, I've seen a lot of these, the bands that come out. No, I don't begrudge them, you know, because everyone's got around a few bob, and if they can get it, then good. I don't never begrudge musicians who can make money in this business, because there's so many shysters out there willing to rob them before they've even got their first halfpenny. I almost have nothing against anybody who can earn their money and keep it in this business.
So that there would be nothing. Who's still around from the first?
Well, there would, I assume, Jim King, Rob Townsend, the drummer, Charlie Whitten, who now lives in Greece, various bass players, obviously. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there could be a contingency there, but I'm really not interested.
So,
to be honest, I wonder if I could even sing those songs anymore. You know, I mean, I changed dramatically as well through the times in a musical sense. Definitely with feel, but then obviously your thought patterns change. You know, and singing soulfully now is not the same as when I thought I was singing soulfully 30 years ago. It's got nothing to do with it. And expressing a song even. You know, I'm not even sure that I could sing those songs. Most of those songs from the early family stuff.
I mean, they've all been re-released.
Oh yeah, time and time again. Yeah. I got asked to do if I wanted to do a stage production of The Music in the Doll's House.
Yeah.
A few years ago. And I went, well, I don't mind, but who's going to put the dough up? I certainly ain't, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, you're talking orchestral and lots and lots of money to actually set up. I said, well, someone had to put their hands in their pocket, fine, you know, I don't mind. But again, looking back on it, I thought, and listening to the songs again, I thought, I don't think I could sing these. I'm not sure that I could sing these songs, you know. So, and I suppose there's a part of that I don't want to reform family either.
So when you go out and you do your solo tours, do you not delve back into those eras? Do you just do the stuff from the solo album?
In the UK, which again I maybe do 4, 5, 6 gigs a year, I'll pull out 2 or 3 family songs. Again, depending on the mood I'm in on the stage as well. Everything's variable to my mood changes, which are quite big, believe me. On stage especially, you know. And that'll depend on whether I might do a family song. More than likely will do a family song in the UK. But if I'm in other European countries, then I'll very rarely venture into it at all.
It's interesting you say about your mood change on stage. You're always very charismatic on stage.
Yeah. It's because I don't know what I'm going to do next.
But do you think that plays a part in your writing? Because you're an emotional writer, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're a really emotional writer in the stuff you do.
Yeah. Subjects that hit me, and some of it I try to cover up and you put into surrealistic form. And some people say, oh, it's rubbish. I say, well, that's because you don't know what it means, you know. I know what it means, not rubbish to me. It's almost all working day-to-day stuff and things that affect me through various emotions and scenes and this, that and the other.
Would you consider yourself more a poet than a lyricist?
I don't consider myself one or the other. I just write. I suppose you call it a lyricist because you put it into music form, you know.
Well, I tend to think that lyrics are something that only work with the music.
Yeah.
And it becomes poetry if you can take it away and read it.
Yeah.
And I'd say that you cover both angles.
Oh, that's very nice. I'll take that as a serious compliment.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one I think like that is Bob Dylan, you know. Oh, I love to bits.
You're not the first person who said that, funny enough, about Bob Dylan being somebody you can take away and stand up. Was he influence?
Oh, my biggest. Well, him and Lieber and Stoller.
Interesting.
Coaster stuff. Anything street, which they did. They were almost the first street writers, other than the blues.
Yeah.
Which are obviously not. But some of their lyrics, even now, just slay me. You know, some of those coaster songs and things like that. Fantastic lyrically.
Do you know what's really interesting is that which I always find interesting for people who write, you know, a lot of lyrics, stroke poetry, is that you have undoubtedly influenced a lot of people in the way that they write. So it's almost quite hard to consider you being influenced by somebody else to do what you do.
I wouldn't have thought that at all. I mean, I always think I'm just this kind of entity that just floats about on his own. I don't think, I've never got to grips that I've influenced anybody at all. I mean, for some reason, people seem to think that I only sing like I sing. I'm the only person that ever walked the planet that sings like I sing. And all I ever want to do was sing like Little Richard or Ray Charles.
You can't honestly sit there, though, Roger, and tell me that no one's ever come up to you and said that what you've done has really influenced either in their own music or their own lives.
No, people have said yes, but I've never really heard anybody say that musically, in a musical sense. I've had people come up and say, "You influenced me in my growing up, you know, my periods of growing up and stuff," which is right, because, you know, I was influenced by Presley and Little Richard and Ray Charles. You know, I mean, I grew up with their records, in that sense. But I've never heard anybody who I would think is influenced musically by family. And maybe I just missed the whole point. You know, obviously I do, the way you're talking. But
they wouldn't keep re-releasing the albums. They wouldn't keep selling.
Yes, but that's nostalgia.
You think so?
Yeah, it's nostalgia.
I'll tell you why I don't think it is. And I'll tell you the real. It was just something that somebody said to me. A kid in Argentina about 5 years ago, and he had one of my really early albums, and he said, "Would you sign this, please?" In Buenos Aires. And I said, "How old are you?" And he said, 16 or something. I said, "God." I said, "What is it about this old music that you really like?" And he said, "It may be old to you, Mr. Wakeman, but it's new to me. I only heard it for the first time last week."
Yeah.
And that's when I suddenly realised that everything is new. A 16, 17-year-old who hears the Doll's House for the first time, that really is that is their first time. It's new. It's new to them. It shouldn't have a date stamped on it.
Yeah.
So I think you do yourself down there somewhere.
Well, no, I suppose it's the thing is that the things I don't think about, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not kind of doing myself down. It's
Well, what's amazing, and I do have genuine admiration for you, is it was interesting. There are so many bands that reform just for that, and as you quite rightly say, good luck to them if you can do that. But you look to the future for all the right reasons, you know, for what you want to do and what you can do. And for that, I take my hat off to you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Roger.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice compliment. Thank you.